December 24th, 9 p.m. The external temperature was exactly 24 degrees Fahrenheit, with a wind chill factor dropping it into the single digits. Inside, however, the climate was controlled, expensive, and artificial. I was sitting in a poltrona Frau leather armchair that I had imported from Italy the previous month, positioned in the strategic corner of the great room. From here, I could survey the entire 5,000-square-foot main floor of the property. I held a crystal tumbler of sparkling water in my hand. I never drink alcohol when I am analyzing a failing investment, and I watched. The fire crackled in the imported marble hearth, consuming logs of aged oak that cost more per bundle than most people spend on groceries. The smell of fresh pine from the 12-foot Nordmann fir tree mixed with the heavy, rich aroma of a prime rib roast that had been slow cooking for 6 hours. It was the scent of success. Or at least, the scent of money. But the atmosphere in the room wasn't one of gratitude. It was one of entitlement. My in-laws, Ernesto and Marta, were standing by the fireplace, raising their glasses. They were drinking a Chateau Margaux 2015. A bottle I had been saving for a merger celebration, which Ernesto had opened without asking, claiming it needed to breathe. They were toasting. To family, Ernesto boomed, his voice thick with the unearned confidence of a man who hasn't signed a paycheck in 30 years. And to tradition. To keeping our standards high, no matter how the world changes. Marta chimed in, the diamonds on her wrist catching the firelight, diamonds I had paid for. To us, she said. And to this beautiful home that has been our sanctuary. I watched them with the cold detachment of an auditor reviewing a fraudulent ledger. They weren't toasting to family. They were toasting to their host organism. They were celebrating another year of successful parasitism. They were the classic case of old money that had lost the money but kept the attitude. They looked down on me, Julian Vargas, the developer, the grinder, the new money, while simultaneously eating my food, living in my asset, and spending my capital. And then there was Clara, my wife. She stood between them, laughing. It was that nervous, high-pitched laugh she reserved for her parents. A laugh that signaled submission. She was wearing a dress I bought her in Paris, jewelry I insured, and holding a glass I filled. But her eyes were fixed on her father, seeking his approval like a dog waiting for a treat. I checked my watch. A Patek Philippe Nautilus. It was 9:02 p.m. I calculated the hourly burn rate of this dinner party. Between the wine, the catering staff in the kitchen, the heating, and the opportunity cost of my time, this evening was costing me roughly $4,000 an hour. I was asking myself the question every investor eventually asks: is the ROI positive? I was about to take a sip of water when a movement in the periphery of my vision triggered my survival instinct. The great room had a massive floor-to-ceiling window wall overlooking the back estate. The curtains were open to showcase the snow-covered hills. The glass was triple-paned, insulated, designed to keep the brutal reality of winter strictly theoretical for those inside. But condensation had formed on the bottom corner of the central pane. Through a small clear patch in the fogged glass, I saw a blur of red. I narrowed my eyes. My brain initially categorized it as a reflection. A dropped scarf. A decoration that had fallen from the terrace. But decorations don't move. Decorations don't shiver. I stood up. The leather of the chair creaked, but no one heard it over their self-congratulatory laughter. I walked toward the window, my pace steady, my mind racing through possibilities. As I got closer, the blur resolved into a shape. A small, human shape. It was Leo, my 7-year-old son. He was out on the stone balcony. The heavy sliding door was shut tight. The latch was engaged from the inside. He was wearing that ridiculous, itchy synthetic wool Christmas sweater with a reindeer on it that Marta had given him an hour ago. And nothing else. No coat. No hat. No gloves. Just cheap wool against the biting wind. He wasn't crying. He was past crying. He was standing there, his small arms wrapped tightly around his chest, trying to hold onto a core body temperature that was rapidly plummeting. He was shaking violently, a rhythmic, uncontrollable convulsion of his entire frame. His nose was pressed against the glass, flattening the cartilage, and his eyes were wide open, staring into the living room. He was watching his mother laugh. He was watching his grandparents drink wine. He was watching the fire. He was looking at the warmth he was forbidden to touch. For a split second, my mind went blank. It was a system error. The logic of the universe had broken. Fathers protect sons. Grandparents spoil grandchildren. Mothers nurture. This scene violated the fundamental laws of nature. Then, the reboot happened. And when I came back online, I wasn't Julian the husband, or Julian the son-in-law. I was Julian the liquidator. I didn't scream. Screaming is a waste of oxygen. Screaming is emotional. This required execution. I walked to the door. I flipped the latch. I slid the heavy glass panel open. The wind hit the room like a physical blow. It shrieked, instantly killing the warmth, swirling the napkins off the table, and cutting through the laughter like a guillotine. I stepped out into the freeze. The cold bit through my suit instantly, but I didn't feel it. I grabbed Leo. He was stiff. Rigor was setting in from the cold. His skin felt like marble, hard and impossibly cold. His lips were a terrifying shade of blue. "Dad," he whispered. It wasn't a word, it was a gasp of air. His teeth were chattering so hard the sound was like a machine gun. Grandpa said, "He said if I came inside, Santa wouldn't come." I picked him up. He weighed nothing. He felt fragile, like a bird with broken wings. He said, "Men don't get cold, Dad. Am I a man yet?" I pulled him into the living room and kicked the door shut. The sound echoed like a gunshot. I stripped off my cashmere blazer, a bespoke piece worth $3,000, and wrapped him in it. I carried him to the fireplace, pushing aside an antique ottoman with my foot, and sat him directly in front of the blaze. I started rubbing his arms, his back, generating friction, trying to push life back into his frozen limbs. The room had gone silent. A heavy, suffocating silence. Ernesto held his wine glass halfway to his mouth, a look of mild annoyance on his face, as if a waiter had dropped a tray. Marta was adjusting her pearls, looking away, feigning sudden interest in the Christmas tree. And Clara turned slowly. She saw me kneeling. She saw Leo shaking. She saw the blue lips. And for a second, I saw terror in her eyes. But it wasn't fear for her son. It was fear of me. "Julian." Ernesto's voice broke the silence. It was deep, resonant, the voice he used to command boardrooms back in the 80s before he bankrupted his inheritance. "Don't be dramatic." The boy was throwing a tantrum. He needed a timeout. A lesson in resilience. I didn't look up. I kept rubbing Leo's arms. "Resilience," I repeated. The word tasted like ash. "Yes, resilience," Ernesto continued, emboldened by my lack of shouting. "In my day, we played in the snow for hours. We didn't cry. We built character. You're coddling him, Julian. You're making him soft." "He's freezing, Ernesto," I said. My voice was low, monotone. Hypothermia isn't a character-building exercise. It's a medical emergency. "Oh, please," Marta scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. "He was out there for 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Don't ruin the mood, Julian. We were just having such a lovely toast." I stopped rubbing Leo's back for 1 second. I looked at the fire. Then I looked at my son. His color was returning. He was safe. I stood up. I turned to face them. I didn't square my shoulders. I didn't clench my fists. I stood with my hands loosely at my sides, perfectly relaxed. The posture of a predator that has already cornered its prey and is simply deciding how to eat it. "Clara," I said. My wife flinched. "Did you know?" I asked. She looked at her father. Ernesto glared at her, a silent command to hold the line. She looked at her mother. Marta raised an eyebrow, a warning. Then she looked at me. "Dad said he was playing a game. Hide and seek. I thought he was dressed warm. I thought—" "You thought," I interrupted. "You thought it was better to let your 7-year-old freeze than to interrupt your father's monologue about the good old days." "Julian, stop it," Clara hissed, lowering her voice. "Not tonight. It's Christmas. Don't make a scene." There it was. The mantra of the enabler. Don't make a scene. Order over justice. Appearance over reality. You're right, I said. No scenes. Just business. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. It was a tool of my trade. With this device, I moved millions, destroyed competitors, and built skylines. Tonight, it would be a weapon. Marta, I said, unlocking the screen. You mentioned this house is your sanctuary. It is, she sniffed haughtily. And I would appreciate it if you didn't text at the dinner table. It's incredibly vulgar. It's a beautiful house, I continued, ignoring her. 5,000 square feet. 6 bedrooms. Heated floors. Market value, as of this morning's index, $3.2 million. We know what it's worth, Julian, Ernesto grunted, taking a sip of the wine I bought. We picked it out, remember? I remember, I said. I remember you picking it out. And I remember writing the check because your credit score was lower than the ambient temperature outside right now. Ernesto turned purple. How dare you? We had a liquidity crisis. It was temporary. 5 years is not temporary, Ernesto. 5 years is a structural deficit. I tapped the screen, opening my asset management application. I scrolled to the folder labeled Family Properties, Non-Revenue Generating. I found the deed. I opened the contacts. I dialed Ricardo. Ricardo was a shark. He wasn't a nice man. He was a developer who specialized in hostile acquisitions. He had been trying to buy the hill this house sat on for 3 years to build luxury condos. I had always said no. Clara had begged me to say no. It's my parents' home, she would say. Today, the answer changed. Ricardo, I said when he answered on the second ring. Julian, it's Christmas Eve. Are you calling to tell me you changed your mind about the marina project? No, I said. I'm calling about the Los Robles estate. The house on the hill. The line went silent. I could hear jazz music in the background on his end. You're selling. I'm selling. Tonight. Tonight. Julian, my lawyers are with their families. Banks are closed. You have an emergency slush fund for acquisitions, Ricardo. I know you do because I helped you set it up. I want the land value minus 20%. But I have conditions. I'm listening. Immediate wire transfer. And immediate possession. I want your private security team, the guys you use for the dock evictions, on site in 20 minutes. Ricardo laughed. It was a dry, rasping sound. You want me to kick someone out on Christmas Eve? Who's in there? Squatters, I said, looking directly at Ernesto. Just some squatters who overstayed their welcome. Done, Ricardo said. I'll wire the deposit now. My team is actually in the area. We had a security issue at the construction site down the road. They can be there in 10. Send them, I said. And Ricardo, tell them to bring the bolt cutters and the new locks. I hung up. The transaction was complete. In under 60 seconds, I had liquidated the asset that anchored this toxic dynamic. I poured myself another glass of water. Who were you talking to? Ernesto demanded. And who are you calling squatters? You, I said calmly. I walked to the massive 80-inch television mounted above the fireplace. I tapped my phone, casting the screen to the TV. The document appeared. Notice of sale and transfer of ownership. Correction, I said. You were guests. Now, you are trespassers. What is this? Marta shrieked, standing up so fast her chair fell over. You sold the house. This house. You can't do that. It's in the family trust. It was never in a trust, Marta, I explained, as if speaking to a slow child. It was held by Vargas Holdings, LLC. You signed a precarious occupancy agreement 5 years ago. You probably didn't read it because you were too busy choosing curtains. Clause 4B. Owner reserves the right to terminate occupancy immediately upon any act of negligence regarding the property or its inhabitants. I pointed to Leo, who was now sitting up, watching us with wide, confused eyes. You endangered an inhabitant. You breached the contract. This is insane. Ernesto roared. I am your father-in-law. I am the patriarch of this family. You are a liability, I corrected. And I just cleared you from the books. Clara. Marta turned to her daughter. Do something. He's delusional. Clara looked at me. Her face was pale. She was vibrating with anxiety. Julian, you can't be serious. Where will they go? It's Christmas. They can go to the Motel 6 on the interstate, I said. I booked them a room. Standard double. No breakfast. It has heating, which is more than they offered your son. You can't do this, Clara whispered. They are my parents. And he is your son. I pointed at Leo, my voice finally rising, cracking the veneer of calm for just a fraction of a second. He was freezing to death, Clara. While you drank wine. You made a choice. You chose the past over the future. You chose their ego over his life. Outside, the darkness was pierced by high-intensity LED beams. Tires crunched on the gravel driveway. Heavy doors slammed. It wasn't Santa. It was the extraction team. The front door opened. I had unlocked it digitally. 3 men entered. They were large, dressed in tactical black, with asset protection embroidered on their vests. They didn't look like they were there to sing carols. Mr. Vargas, the lead guard asked. That's me, I said. The property is now owned by Ricardo Mentes. These individuals are trespassing. Please remove them. The chaos that followed was beautiful in its brutality. Ernesto tried to bluster, threatening lawsuits, threatening to call senators he hadn't spoken to in 20 years. The guards simply took him by the elbows and walked him out. He looked small, defeated, an old man shouting at the wind. Marta tried to grab the silver candelabras. These are mine, she screamed. Inventory list says they convey with the house, the guard said, gently but firmly removing them from her grip. Personal items only, ma'am. Coats and handbags. Everything else stays. She wailed. It was a high, thin sound of pure vanity breaking. My things. My life. Your life was a loan, I said. And the bank just foreclosed. Clara stood in the middle of the room, paralyzed. The guards were efficient. They were already changing the locks on the back door. They were professionals. They didn't care about the drama. They cared about the paycheck. And I pay very well. Julian. Clara pleaded, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. Please. Stop this. I'll make it up to you. I'll be better. It's too late for better, I said. You had 5 years to be better. You had 10 minutes while he was outside to be a mother. You failed. I signaled to the guard. Her too. What? Clara gasped. I'm your wife. You're an accomplice, I said. And the prenup is very clear about infidelity. I never cheated on you. You cheated on our family, I said. You gave your loyalty to them. That's the only infidelity that matters to me. Take her out. The guard stepped toward her. Ma'am, please. Don't make us carry you. Clara looked at me one last time. She was looking for the man who used to pay for everything, the man who used to forgive everything. He wasn't there. Only the liquidator remained. She turned and ran out the door, chasing after her parents, crying into the cold night. When the door clicked shut, the silence returned. But it wasn't heavy anymore. It was clean. It was empty. I walked over to Leo. I picked him up again. He was warm now. Dad, he asked, is Grandpa mad? Grandpa is gone, Leo. He's not coming back. And Mom went with him. Are we staying here? No, I said. This isn't our house anymore. We're going somewhere real. I carried him out to the driveway. My armored SUV was idling, the remote start having warmed the interior to a perfect 72 degrees. I buckled him in. I looked back at the house one last time. I saw my in-laws and my wife standing on the curb, next to their hastily packed suitcases, arguing with each other while waiting for an Uber. They looked pathetic. Stripped of the environment I provided, they were nothing. Just bitter people in the cold. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel regret. I felt lighter. I had just shed 300 pounds of dead weight. I got in the driver's seat and pulled out of the driveway. As we passed them, I didn't look. I kept my eyes on the road. "Where are we going, Dad?" Leo asked from the back seat. "To the airport," I said. "We're going to Aspen. We're going to spend Christmas in the snow. But this time, we'll be the ones controlling the temperature." I dialed my lawyer on the car's hands-free system. "It's done," I said. "File the papers tomorrow. Irreconcilable differences. And freeze the joint accounts. Leave her the $50,000 stipulated in the contract. Nothing more." I hung up. The road ahead was clear. The heater was humming. My son was safe. I had lost a house, but I had regained my life. In the world of high-stakes investment, sometimes you have to burn an asset to save the portfolio. And tonight, business was good.